Hey guys, what's going on? My name is No Pun Intended, and welcome to my draft analysis for Season 1 of the Minor Pokemon League. I've done draft league content before, and if you guys have enjoyed it in the past, I'd really appreciate a like or a comment. I really appreciate a like or a comment on this video. You have no idea how much I'd like that. But, make yourself known to me. I've been really interested in seeing, what my subscribers are up to, especially because I recently hit 50, and I can't help but thank everyone who's supported me over the past year. Since I started uploading Pokemon stuff in July, I didn't think I would reach this point, especially after not seeing much growth in the first 6 months of 2018, but I am truly grateful for all of you who have stuck around. I hope I can continue to entertain you. Anyway, today I will be discussing the team I drafted for this season of the Minor Pokemon League, and it's sort of a dream come true for me, because once I saw they made a season trailer for all the coaches in the league, I was hooked. I just had to get in. But in all seriousness, I do know a lot of the coaches that played last season in NPL as well as in seasons prior to Season 6. And I'm honestly, even considering that, a bit surprised that I got in, as I do have the lowest subscriber count of all 8 coaches that got in this season, but I guess those connections really helped me out in the application process. So I guess we should talk about the team. The draft pool for the Minor PL is quite a bit more limited than most other leagues, because it's basically all the leftovers that the 16 teams in the major Pokemon League did not have on their rosters at the end of the season, so that's basically 170-something Mons that aren't eligible to be selected. So it kind of makes it more difficult to pick out your teams when you're doing that, but thankfully I did manage to find some nice little sleeper Mons that were still available on the board. And one of the ones that was available, I don't think it was because it's not a good Mon, I just think it's because it wasn't released when NPL Season 6 started, and that Mon is Zeraora. I've always been intrigued by Zeraora ever since it came out back in July, just the fact that it's a physical electric type, which is already a pretty uncommon archetype in Pokemon. It gets a very good physical stab move in Plasma Fist, which is like 100 base power. It has the ability to run both physical and special attacks. 143 speed makes it faster than pretty much anything in the format. It has decent coverage. I know it doesn't get Ice Punch, but I can probably work around that. Decent offensive stats, an okay support move pool, and one of the big things for me at least is Volt Absorb as an ability. I love that it gets an electric immunity just because it makes it less likely that opponents are going to bring Volt Switch on some of their electric types, and it takes a lot of pressure off the ground type that I'm going to eventually select. But not only that, there are people that are literally going to be clicking on my video specifically because I drafted Zeraora and I'm going to battle with Zeraora, so I can't help but say that the views and the clickbait was definitely part of it too. For those of you that click on my battle videos because I have Zeraora in the thumbnail, don't say I didn't warn you. But moving on to my second pick in the draft, I decided to get a full-blown support Mon to help out Zeraora, and that Mon's going to be Klefki. Klefki was actually drafted in NPL Season 6 and then cut when one of the coaches dropped and got replaced and all that. But Klefki still has a lot of very useful tools that I think are going to help out my team in the long run. I love dual screens. If you've seen some of my previous games in other leagues, I just use dual screens so much. It's a really good hazard control because it gets both spikes as well as defog. Its stats are okay, but its defensive typing really helps to make up for that just because its weaknesses are basically fire and ground, and it even has Magnet Rise to get around the whole ground weakness that it happens to share with Zeraora. But one of the biggest reasons why I picked Klefki in round 2 is just because Steel and Fairy types are very hard to find in this format with all the Mons that are ineligible to be selected. I think there were only 10 Fairy types that were fully evolved on the board and 13 or so Steel types. So in picking Klefki round 2, I wanted to make sure I got those 2 types squared away so I wouldn't have to reach for a Mon of that type later on in the draft. So yeah, this is probably a bit early for Klefki, especially considering what Mons went around it, but I had my reasons for it. And speaking of early, a lot of people will say my third pick is also a bit early, but it was a calculated maneuver by me in order to make sure that I got a generally bulky Mon at some point. I basically looked at the tiers prior to the draft, and I realized that Musharna for 6 points was a bloody steal, especially considering that one of the best Mons that was also available in the draft pool was Mega Medicham. So I just wanted to make sure I got my counterford squared away, but Musharna is a really nice Pokemon with an okay offensive move pool, but the big thing about it is that it gets reliable recovery with Moonlight, it has the ability to boost with Barrier and Calm Mind, and it has a few useful support moves as well, such as Thunder Wave and a couple other things that I won't be getting into, but Musharna I think is just going to be a very sturdy Pokemon that can take hits from a lot of the potent threats that were available in the Minor PL draft board. It was at about this point that I realized, I have a fast electric type, I have a decently bulky steel type, I could turn this into some kind of a rain team if I wanted to. Not like a full-on 8 Mons of rain Swift Swim Sweeper rain team, but more just like a casual rain team that I could bring in if I wanted to, but I wasn't required. because I had mons that could operate very well outside of it. And it was at about the point that I selected Marsharna that I decided this was probably going to be the direction I was going in for the draft. Of course, I didn't take into account the fact that Marsharna's recovery move is actually Moonlight, not Recover, which I thought it was, which means that it recovers a lot less HP while it's in rain. So that was a bit unfortunate, but can't really change that now and decide Marsharna's still a good Pokemon. Now, Pelipper did go in round 3, but I was still setting my sights on Politoed for the later portion of the draft, because I knew that unless somebody really, really wanted Rain, Politoed wasn't likely to be taken, and a lot of the teams had taken Megas already, so they couldn't choose Mega Swampert. That includes the team that selected Pelipper too. So it was in my mind that I was probably going to go for Rain plus Mega Swampert as my Mega, and that influenced the picks that I would make later on in the draft. First up, I wanted to get a Mon that could abuse Hurricane in Rain, and the Mon I chose for that role was Noivern. It's a very tricky Pokemon with access to Switch Root to force awkward items onto things. It gets Taunt, it gets U-Turn to switch out of something and go into one of my bulky Mons. It just seems like it fits very well in this team. It has a few nice characteristics as well, such as its abilities. Infiltrator breaks through subs, First lets me scout out items. It just seems like a fun mod to use. I last used it back in 6th gen, so I do have a little bit of experience with it, but not so much in Rain, and I'm hoping that that makes it a lot more reliable in terms of attacking. The next mon I selected was Vileplume. It's a mon that I have more experience with. I used it in 6th gen for one of my old leagues there, but most recently I had it in UBC, and I did kind of like it as a budget grass type that had pretty good recovery with access to Strength Sap, a decent special attack stat, so it's not entirely passive where opponents' Pokemon will set up subs on it. Vileplume is just a very well-rounded sort of mon that is a bit slow and won't be like... It won't carry me to any victories, but it's just a nice mon to add some defensive synergy to my roster. And it's only 4 points. I find that to be a complete bargain for a mon with the well-roundedness that Vileplume has. And its defensive typing means it fits in very well with the mons I already have, especially if I do get Rain to cover up its fire weakness. And speaking of Rain, now is when I chose to select Politoed. I didn't want to risk it leaving me, because Politoed has some nice things that it gives. Apart from Drizzle, it's got decent bulk on its own. It has some nice disruptive moves that I love disruptive moves, stuff like Encore, stuff like Parasong. Who knows, we'll get to use those in a game, but it's nice to just have at least a mon that can potentially do that. And with the Rain active, it actually can fire off some decently powerful water-type attacks, so that's a big exciting for me. But really, Politoed's defensive typing only weak to electric and grass-type attacks. I've got an electric immunity in Zeraora, and Noivern and Vileplume really do not care about the grass-type attacks, so I feel as though I cover Politoed's weakness as well, and I'm excited to try Rain out for the first time in Draft League. Let's move on to my next pick. It was a 2-point mon who I could hitch my remaining Z budget onto if I made Zeraora a Z captain, and it's a pretty good Z user in itself. I chose Pinsir because it's a mon rich in positives in spite of its 2-point price. It has Bug Rock ground coverage, which is pretty suitable for it. It has access to Swords Dance and has a pretty good base stat spread to take advantage of it. It's also the mon I picked up to fill in that base 80-ish speed tier that I always seem to be desperate for recently. It gives me a Banded Zygarde 10 resist, because you always have to look out for that one team that drafts Zygarde. And most importantly, Pinsir is my first Stealth Rocker. There weren't a lot of good ones out there in my opinion, except for some rock types, but I just didn't have the budget to fit them in. So I had to go with the 2-point mon as, well, my second best rocker. Only having 2 rockers is going to be a bit annoying, but it's one of the flaws that this team has, and hopefully it's something I can fix up in free agency. Anywho, my next pick is an offensive Pokemon that really appreciates Rain, even though it doesn't get Swift Swim, and that's Keldeo. I'm not surprised it didn't get picked until round 8, just because water and fighting types are so easy to find in Draft League format, and in fact I was also considering Conkeldurr for this pick, because both Conk and Keld qualified as potential wall breakers. But I settled on Keldeo because I was too tempted by the prospect of boosted Hydro Pumps and Scalds in Rain. In addition to its usual methodology of hitting the physical defense stat with Sacred Sword, it has some nice tools like Taunt and Calm Mind in its move pool that make it at least a little more unpredictable, and it's my strongest special attacker in terms of raw power, so I think it's a great addition to the team. It is definitely a bit expensive, but I think it can definitely do a lot to justify its price tag. Next up, I got 1-point Regigigas. Here's the basic idea behind Regi. My opponent's teams are going to be very likely to bring Stally tactics in order to exhaust Rain if I choose to bring it. But then Regigigas punishes teams that use Protect or Substitute to stall. If you waste too many turns while it's out on the field, then Slow Start wears off, its attack and speed double, and it actually begins to resemble the legendary Pokemon that it is. Also, having access to Knockoff and Thunder Wave allows it to potentially gimp my opponent's team, so that another one of my mods can either sweep or stall to victory. Not a lot of 1-point mods have that kind of utility, and I'm hoping that Regigigas can really show what it's made of. But that's going to lead into the final mod that I drafted, the strong wall-breaking physical attacker of my team, and that's going to be Mega Swampert. This is not a surprising selection to anyone who's seen how I built this team. I did not get a Swift Swim user until I got Mega Swampert, and I find that that's going to be very helpful for Zero Aura, just because I imagine a lot of teams are going to bring Scarfers to potentially outspeed it, but even if you bring a Scarfer, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed to outspeed Mega Swampert. It's got a decent chunk of bulk with its 110 base defenses. It's got decent coverage as well and support. It's my second Stealth Rocker. I know it's not optimal to have a Mega Swampert be a rocker, but it can potentially pull off the role. And honestly, it doesn't have very many consistent switches. Yeah, I know grass types can handle it pretty well, but I do have Vileplume as a good grass switch, and I do have Noivern who's a good check to grass types, and I may be able to wear them down by spamming water attacks with Politoed and Keldeo. I'm actually very excited for what Swampert can do, and hey, this is more of a 7-game rental anyway. If I end up not liking it, then it's not like I burned a season that really matters all that much. This is more for fun. I just want to make sure that I enjoy myself here in the minor PL, because it's not that serious of a league like something like, say, the NPL or the ITL, and that was never really my goal to get into one of those uber serious leagues. I just don't have the time for that anymore. But that is going to be my draft for Season 1 of the Minor Pokemon League. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Hopefully this team can perform as well as the team that I drafted in PCL this season. Let's hope it does. Please make sure to leave a like or a comment on the video if you enjoyed the team. Subscribe to the channel to catch the 7 games that I upload for this season. And let's go Aegislash. Until I see you next time, take care.